Shalom, I'm Rabbah Arlene Berger, and I'm very happy to share Kabbalat Shabbat with you. We'll begin with Bim Bam. Bim Bam, Bim 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 Bam, Bim 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 Bam. Bim Bam, Bim 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 Bam, Bim 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 Bam. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom. Bim Bam, Bim 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 Bam, Bim 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 Bam. We turn to Shalom Aleichem. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzedchem L'Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now we turn to Matovu, a song of community. Matovu, Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. Matovu, Ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. Now we'll do Lecha Dodi, welcoming the Sabbath Queen, and we will do the first two verses and the last two verses. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad. Hishmianu el hamyuchad. Adonai echad u'shmo echad. L'shem u'tiferet v'lithilah. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki hi mekor habracha. Merosh mikadam nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Yamin u'smol tifrotzi, v'et Adonai ta'aritzi. Al yad ish ben patzi, v'nismecha v'nagila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'b'tzola, toch emunei am segula. Boi chala, lecha Dodi likrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela. The Baruch Hu, which starts our preliminary section going into the Shema. Baruch Hu et Adonai hamevorach, Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gates, thoughtfully alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to plan. You are creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness away from light, transforming day into night and distinguishing one from the other. Adonai Tzvaot is your name, ever-living God. May you reign continually over us into eternity. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ari v'aravim. With everlasting love. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, b'shofvenu v'kumeinu, nasiach b'chukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'b'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. Ki hem chayenu ve'orech yameinu, uvahem nege yomam v'layla, v'ahavatecha al tasir mimenu le'olamim. Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. We begin the Shema. Take a deep breath, let it out as we reach the beginning of the central point of our service. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod, Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, v'chol levavcha, u'v'chol nafshecha, u'v'chol meodecha, v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anochi mitzavecha, hayom al levavecha, v'shinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, v'shivtecha, b'veitecha, v'lachtecha, v'derech, ובשופך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let these words guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. These words are reminders to do all of my mitzvot, so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai, your God. When God's children beheld the power of the divine, they sang in praise of God, gladly accepting God's sovereignty. Moses, Miriam, and the people Israel sang with great joy this song to you. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, nora tehilot osef eleh. Who is like you, God, among all that is worshipped? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in splendor, working wonders? Your children beheld your sovereignty as you divided the sea before Moses. This is my God, they responded, declaring, Adonai Yimloch Leolam Va'ed. Help us, Adonai our God, to lie down in peace and awaken us to life again, our sovereign. Spread over us your shelter of peace. Guide us with your good counsel. Save us for the sake of your mercy. Shield us from enemies and pestilence, from starvation, sword, and sorrow. Remove evil forces that surround us and shelter us in the shadow of your wings. You, O God, guard us and deliver us. You are a gracious and merciful ruler. Guard our coming and our going. Grant us life and peace now and always. Spread over us your shelter of peace. Praised are you, Adonai, who spreads a shelter of peace over us, over all of Israel, and over Jerusalem. Shamru. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat ledorotam berit olam. B'ni u'ben b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam, oti le'olam, oti le'olam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. We now turn to the Amidah, the Avot service. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibur v'Hanora, El Elyon, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה, חסד וחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמנתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיי המתים. We'll now take a few moments for some silent reflection. Oseh shalom bimrama, uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, imru amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, yaseh shalom, shalom. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. May the one who brings peace on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and all who live on earth, and let us say, Amen. We now prepare to say a prayer for healing. And I'm going to first say a prayer for all those who are on the front lines helping protect us in this time. And then we will sing Debbie Friedman's Mishabera. And I'd like you to keep in mind in your heart and in your head those who are ill and that you want to send some healing blessing to. Prayer for healers. May the one who blessed our ancestors bless all those who put themselves at risk to care for the sick, physicians, nurses, and orderlies, technicians and home health aides, EMTs and pharmacists, and also bless all those who are working on the front lines that we tend to overlook, including workers at grocery stores and pharmacies, trash collectors, and delivery people. Those who navigate the unfolding dangers of the world each day to tend to those they have sworn to help. Bless them in their coming home and bless them in their going out. Ease their fears, sustain them. Source of all breath, healer of all beings, protect them and restore our hope. Strengthen them that they may bring strength. Keep them in health that they may bring healing. Help them to know again a time when they can breathe without fear. Bless the sacred work of their hands. May this plague pass among us speedily and in our days. Mishaberach avotenu mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mishaberach imotenu Mekor habracha la'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Kiddush, I invite you to raise your glass with me. Savrei, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho v'ahava ufratzon hinchilanu, zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila l'mikra'e kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim, kivanu v'acharta, v'otanu kidashta, v'kol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, v'ahava uvratzon, hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh HaShabbat. Time for some Torah. In this week's Parsha, Vetchanan, Moshe begins the second recitation of the Ten Commandments. There are slight differences in the two versions of the Decalogue, the one presented in Exodus and the one here in Deuteronomy. I want to highlight the differences in the fourth commandment between the first time we're told to keep Shabbat and then the second time when we're told to guard Shabbat. The best known difference is found in the first line of the commandment. Exodus chapter 20 verse 8 states, Zachor et HaShabbat lekodsho, remember the Sabbath to keep it holy, remember. And then in Deuteronomy chapter 5 verse 12 this week, it says, Shamor et HaShabbat lekodsho, observe or keep the Sabbath to keep it holy. So why two different words? Why Shamor? Why Zachor? There are many explanations, but I prefer the simplest one. The first time we learn the Ten Commandments, we are a newly formed people, receiving the basics about how to become the Jewish people. The term Zachor is a big picture term to be understood as saying, remember to observe the Sabbath. The term Shamor, which also means observe, in our Parsha reminds us that there are specific ways to observe the Sabbath, and we are to remember them. Midrash says that the people heard both of these words at the exact same moment. Midrash makes sense if both words contain each other's meanings within them. The final difference occurs in the last line of the commandment. In both versions, we're told that the Sabbath is the seventh day, and we shouldn't do any melacha, any creative work on that day. The difference is in who these commandments apply to and why. So the people commanded to observe the Sabbath in both versions include you, if you're the man of the family, one's daughter, one's son, male and female slaves, cattle, and the stranger within your gates. Deuteronomy chapter 5 reads, "But the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord our God. In it you shall not do any work, nor you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male slave, nor your female slave, nor your ox, nor your ass, nor any of the cattle, not your stranger who is inside your gates, so that your male slave and your female slave may rest as well as you." A lot to unpack there. We find the ox and ass added to cattle in the second version that I just read in Deuteronomy as a way of enforcing the need to be kind to animals. Tending to animals and strangers are both things that a slave should have respite from on the Sabbath day. The addition in this second version is clearly one that speaks to us about how to run our households and by extension our community with respect and fairness, at least according to the times in which this was written. There's one final line in each version of the commandments, the why of it all. Exodus 20 verse 11 says, "For in 6 days the Lord your God made heaven and earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy." Now in Deuteronomy chapter 5 verse 15 it says, "And remember that you were a servant in the land of Egypt, and that the Lord your God brought you out from there with a mighty hand and with an outstretched arm. Therefore the Lord your God commanded you to keep the Sabbath day." We are reminded here of the two core narratives of our people, creation and the Exodus from Egypt. Why do we do what we do as Jews? Because God created our world and everything in it, and because we are to remember that we were once slaves, that the same God rescued from Egypt. Now, as the people are about to enter the Holy Land, it is fitting to remind them not only of all that God has promised them and all that God has done to help them transform from slaves to a free people, ready to enter the Promised Land, but also to teach them the specifics of how to behave as a free people. So we see this in Lechadodi. We have in the very first verse, Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad. Guard and remember the Sabbath as one word. So this reinforces the idea that God said Shamor and Zachor in one voice, and that's how the people heard it, which is something that we can't even imagine today. But I also love this idea that each of these versions, the one that begins with Shamor and the one that begins with Zachor, contain each other within them. They tell us what we needed to know at the time when they were being told, and they do everything they can to remind us that we are God's partners in creating the world and maintaining the world, and therefore we have to treat everyone and everything with respect. So given the current state of affairs, the pandemic, the isolation, and the political situation that we find ourselves in, I cannot think of a better time to be reminded of where we come from and what or who we need to become. This week's Torah portion reminds us that knowing the right thing to do is not the same as actually doing it. It also reminds us that all people are created in God's image and are deserving of rest, of freedom, and of peace. May peace come quickly and speedily in our time. We now turn to Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu k'goyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chalkenu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim u'mishachavim u'modim, lifnei melech malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shehu noteh shamayim v'yoser haaretz, u'moshav yikaro b'shamayim mima'al, u'shchinatu zo, v'gov pei meromim, hu Eloheinu ein od, emet malkeinu efes ulato, ka'katuv b'torato v'yadat hayom, ידעת היום והשבות על לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת, אין עוד. ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא, יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. We turn to Mourner's Kaddish. I just want to bring into our consciousness the reminder that this week we observe Tisha B'Av, a day where so many of the bad things that happened to our people occurred on, or this day symbolically represents them. And this week's Torah portion really relates to the Tisha B'Av, because we're told that the second temple was destroyed because of sinat chinam, baseless hatred. So all the more so, we need to act and not just think, and we need to watch what our words say because we can't take them back, and we need really to pray for peace in the world. Mourner's Kaddish, I invite you to say the name aloud or silently to yourself of those for whom you are observing a yurtzeit, if you are in mourning, or if it is your custom to say Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yomad yivrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei b'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'bizman kariv imru amen, yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olomei al maya, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shmei dekudusha v'richu, ve'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran ba'olma v'imru amen, yehei shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen, oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'al kol yoshvei tevel v'imru amen. May the one who brings peace on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to all those who dwell on this planet. And let us say amen. I want to wish you all a Shabbat Shalom, a Shabbat of love and health and peace and health and more health. I look forward to sharing Shabbat again with you next week. Shabbat Shalom.